What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Fast Life Podcast, which is brought to you by Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. For years now, Simpson has been keeping me safe out on the open road with their iconic and aggressive style that has always stood out amongst other helmets. Head on over to simpsonmotorcyclehelmets.com to check out all the different models, finishes, and visor options they have, and then give my guys a follow on the gram at Simpson Motorcycle Helmets. Today we are sitting down with Josh from 2 Lane Life. Josh is the man behind the camera, creating all the awesome videos that you've seen over the last 4 years coming out of the 2 Lane Life YouTube channel. Josh is a photographer, a writer, and all around good dude. And every time me and him get together, we just nerd out on cameras and all that kind of stuff. And I thought it'd be great for us to finally sit down and just do a podcast about it. Put it all on microphones, let you guys hear it, see what it's like for guys like him to get out there and create these kind of videos that you've been consuming for the past 4 years on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with Josh from the 2 Lane Life. Over the past year, Cowboy Harley-Davidson has been putting in the work to help bring together various aspects of the motorcycle culture within the Austin, Texas community. They have supported not only the podcast, but also many local bike events and shows, including our FXR tour. I want to express my gratitude to the entire staff at Cowboy Harley for their support. I've had the pleasure of purchasing 2 bikes from Cowboy Harley-Davidson in my lifetime. Most recently, I bought a Lowrider ST, which was dialed in with a few custom parts that I pretty much got to have on every bike. Whether you are in the market for a new or used Harley-Davidson or looking to get your motorcycle customized, repaired, or simply maintained, you can count on their professional parts and service departments to get your bike dialed. To get in touch with them, you can visit their website, cowboyharleyaustin.com, or simply drop in and start a conversation about your next or even your first Harley-Davidson. And don't forget to give them a follow on the gram to stay up to date with all the other happenings and events going around in the Austin, Texas area. I have been using Lexin moto products for the past 6 years, and they have been an integral part of my riding experience. My journey with them started with their original FT4 headset and tire pump, but now I've upgraded to their top-of-the-line Novus headset, which features 40mm Lexin Plus speakers, CVC and DSP noise cancellation technology. With the Mesh 3.0 power technology behind it, I can connect with up to 32 riders on any given ride. Their new P5 Advanced Smart Tire Pump is a must-have for every biker. I always keep one in my garage, and it comes in handy during long trips if my phone battery or tire pressure is low. For more information on these fantastic products, check out their website, lexin-moto.com, and don't forget to use the offer code FASTLIFE at checkout to save you 15% on your order. And lastly, head on over to Instagram and give these guys a follow at Lexin Moto.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
I'm glad you're back.
You know what? It's good to be back. It's been a long break.
How long has it been?
Like 17 minutes.
Fuck.
I haven't taken a drink of this type of thing in a while, so I'm ready to get a little bit loosey-goosey, slur a couple words, and enjoy my time doing it.
Oh, I'm already slurring because we just did the 2 Lane Life podcast, and now we're sitting here. See? We're sitting here on the 2 Lane J, which is now I'm riding places.
I'm riding places. I went through a list of my name's not Jay, and a lot of people called me Jay.
Yeah.
But when I made the account, it was 2lane.j, and I'm trying to be like somewhat political correct, but it reminded me of like a scammer, like the guys that call me with a certain accent.
Yeah.
So I just,
stuck with it.
I tried to use my name. There's some asshole named Josh Seiden who's a photographer out there with that username. So you know what? I found something. Anyway.
Well,
cheers,
dude. Thanks for doing this. I was trying to make this podcast happen with you during Born Free California last year.
Yep.
And obviously you're a busy dude. Like you have a crazy schedule with keeping up with the 2 Lane Life video production and all the other things that go on within this place, not just video, but photography, all the content that comes out of this brand, like it kind of flows through you almost.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be a bit overwhelming. I think no matter what you do, if it's 200 weeks in a row, you're going to get used to it. A lot of the web stuff, we just hired a developer a couple months ago, but up until that point, I made their website, our website. input all the products, customer service, emails, all the photography, social media, YouTube and all that stuff. But now we've kind of delegated some things, and I'm on my way to focusing on the creative stuff more, you know, and less so the other stuff. So it's just, you know, when you only got a small team.
Yeah, you make it happen. Yeah. Well, I think it's, you know, first off, you know, I hate saying like, oh man, you're so young. Yeah. I mean, you're younger, but I think that you know, out of college, you nailed this gig, right? Yeah. Which, to be honest with you, if you think about it, it has to be as good or if not better than like a internship at any kind of production company. I mean, you're literally creating videos and your like your growth in general has been phenomenal.
For sure. And I went to business school. I didn't study. I didn't study camera stuff. So it's much better than a business internship. Yeah. You're getting minimum wage. I mean, you're getting experience, but it's going to be a while until you get to what you're going for, and probably not. I guess the way I like to look at it, you can always go back and get a job like that. Yeah. Especially if you have that background, but you can't always go back and start from a opportunity like we did here. Yeah. And I haven't felt the need to go get a job. So
that's awesome.
You know,
so for like a quick context kind of like segment, like how would you say like your connection to creating videos, doing photography, like, because you have the photography side and the bike side, and those two have to come together for you to be sitting in the 2-lane life realm before we even get 4 years down the line to this point. Yeah. So what does that look like?
I actually kind of fell into both around the same time. I was in college. I was into like tuner cars back at the time, and I had just dumped way too much money into this new to me car at the time. It blew up, sold it, I lost like 30 grand on the car, and I was left with $7
What was
grand. It was a 2011 WRX, but it just had a lot of resources dumped into it. Yeah. So I was left with $7 grand, and I just said, fuck it. I bought my first bike. And from there, I just enjoyed it. I never really had an interest in social media, had an interest in camera stuff, but the girl I was dating at the time had a GoPro. We went to a music festival. She didn't want to use it. So I just made a video. I hadn't done that ever. And then people liked it. Oh, let's do it again. That's the shortest version. Yeah. So I just started messing around, and then eventually just reached the point where I could quit my shitty restaurant job and just kind of be a broke college kid doing that instead.
Yeah. Know? So this is all while you're still in college, right?
Yeah, all while I was still in school. And then by the time I was done, I was getting some decent jobs, but I didn't have any interest in doing weddings or doing freelance or doing music videos or any of that shit. So I was applying to internships. I had already applied, and then I got a call because Rob Scott, who works for Thrashin', I had ridden with him like maybe 4 times, and he just knew I fucked with the cameras and just messed around. So like they said in the podcast, you know, they came here asking if anyone knew anyone. He happened to drop my name. So shout out to Rob Scott. But
nice.
It was that. Yeah. And in the beginning, it was, I didn't have a whole lot of support from family. They were like, what are you doing? Like they didn't get it. Right. Yeah. My mom was stoked. But anyway, not the point. I told him, look, I'll stick with you for 3 years. And at the time that was a big commitment. Like I could have been doing other things. But I believed in what they had going on. It took us a while, I think, to reach a point of me liking the stuff we were putting out quality-wise. I mean, we were talking about that. It's hard to put something out that you're not like, I made that, right?
Yeah.
But you just have to do it to get to that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. So this whole time, like doing the GoPro, it opens you up. I think anything video related is going to somehow naturally drag you into photography, you know?
Yeah. I bought like my first, DSLR. I was on a trip in Oregon and just taking advantage of the no tax. Yeah. Bought some cheap DSLR, and like any newbie photographer just took 10,000 pictures on that trip, and you don't know that you just cranked way too much saturation or too much this and that. But
that was a vibe for a while though.
It was
photography, the wave.
Yeah. But it was just the beginning of a learning experience. And I think when making a little bit of cash using cameras came around, you're kind of forced to improve. You don't know what you need to improve on. But I only really got into photography heavy like this year.
Yeah.
I like really enjoying photography for what it is and not like trying to get this crispy, crazy shot or trying to shoot for Instagram or trying this, that, and the other, like just photography, you know?
Yeah.
And it's made me want to just be a photographer. But I don't know. I enjoy it all. It's fun. Burnout's a real thing.
Yeah.
But it's all a good time.
Me and you've been nerding out all day long about film photography and things like that. And before we like nerd out again, I think that like Instagram, as much as I want to damn it, it's, I owe a lot to it. Right. It did push me to want to do photography. It did push me to want to make videos. But one thing we were talking about earlier is like, because Instagram was kind of the original place that photography was pushing us, I think that I was trying to make photography for Instagram.
It is very different. I mean, there are rules there. There are rules that are meant to be broken, just even within photography as itself. But, here comes along the vertical photo and here comes along this and that. And you get rewarded by showing your subject up close on Instagram, this type of thing. And like a lot of those fundamentals kind of go out the window. Yeah. Right. And it's just very different. But yeah, I guess we had a whole podcast before we even pressed recording. But yeah, things changed, I guess. But whether it's falling in love back with photography or falling in love with film photography and just kind of letting the Instagram thing go, way better.
So what I think has happened though, and hopefully more people that are in the same path of like us hear this. Yeah. I think what's happened is Instagram inspired thousands of photographers, and then they found YouTube and the Peter McKinnons and the Grainy Days and the Evan Ramps and all these other people who make photography videos that help teach people some of the path, right?
Yep.
But then after you've done this deep dive and you start to kind of develop a skill, if you will, and now you come back to this place that initially inspired you, and it's not for you anymore. There's no place to put photography on social media. It's almost like you got to take a picture, print it out, and then hold it backwards on a video and like
dance around,
look like you're nervous,
show some skin,
okay, and turn it around and to get people to watch it.
Yeah. It is really weird. And I've thought about that too. I would love to eventually have and make enough free time to put out not content like TikToks and Instagram and shit, but like films, stuff involving photography and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But in the short term of that, you're right. Like in order for your photography to get a bit of a reach, if you will, you got to like do some shit like that, which I'm not really into these days.
Same.
And same deal. I mean, I've thought about that a lot. I'll come home with a bunch of rolls of film from a trip and just get developed, get them back. Like, oh, that's so fucking sick. I love that. Yeah. And get my prints and put it in a folder, and that is good enough for me. But when it comes to some of the stuff, and that's more like life stuff that I'd never post, a car road trip, blah, blah, blah. But with the bike stuff, I'm like, I love those photos, and I think people that use the internet for the same shit I do would also love those photos, and you put them out there. I don't know. It's just a weird platform that I've kind of fallen out of love with. For a while I was pretty into it, like just making creative stuff. And I think when you see more people enjoying the stuff you make, it fuels you to make more. Yeah. And that's it. You're not getting paid off it, not a ton at least.
But what's strange to me though, and maybe this is a caveat in the whole like creating content for Instagram, is when the Reels thing got big, certain companies like Canva and other companies similar to that started coming around where the job for them was to, hey, we're going to give you quality real content and post content. You just got to put it through our app, and we'll create the fucking artistic vision for you. And I'm not talking shit about anybody that uses that, but I think that you know what, I always hated the concept of like the punk rock attitude towards anything. Like it sold out, blah, blah, blah. But I never thought I would say that about art.
Having a brand like Arlen support the Fast Life podcast is absolutely surreal. Decades before I fell in love with motorcycles, the Nest brand was right there innovating and inspiring generation after generation. The brand's long-standing history and dedication to the custom motorcycle industry is truly remarkable. I have been fortunate enough to use many of their products on my Road Glide, Lowrider ST, and FXR chopper over these past few years. I love their 4 and 6 piston brake calipers, wheels, and bagger mid controls. And I use Arlen air cleaners on all my bikes. And even after thousands of miles, the parts still look and feel new. If you're interested in learning more about the Arlen motorcycle products, head on over to arlens.com where you can find out more information and see their vast catalog. And for our listeners, if you drop the Fast Life 10 offer code at checkout, you're going to save yourself 10% on your order. And don't forget to give these guys a follow on Instagram at Arlen Motorcycles to stay up to date with all the happenings around the brand. Now let's get back to the show.
I mean, there's 20 different directions I could go. Like, the good thing about, I guess, how this happened is more people are picking up cameras.
True.
My generation, dudes younger than me, are learning and messing around with cameras. And with that is just coming a higher and higher level of quality when you get into like that realm of content.
Yeah.
And then there's the cringy shit and the dumb shit and the stuff made on CapCut or whatever. That's fine. But that's competition when art really shouldn't be competition. So like when you put an art on Instagram, it's like a data thing instead of just a pure enjoyment thing. And I remember a while back you had used that app, some photography app, right? I asked you about it. I never used it. It's like a photography only social media.
Oh yeah. Vero.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
And I never downloaded it because their terms of service seemed super sketchy and I wasn't into it.
As all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened was it became a place where you would upload your photos and you would be able to put out higher quality images. And there was a community starting to be built, but then you realize without an audience, your audience is your peers.
Yeah.
So without the dual aspect of audience, like I want an audience of peers in my Instagram, but I also want an audience that are not photographers, that are not custom painters, that are looking at my stuff because maybe it inspires them, right?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So then it just becomes, it's almost fueling that same cycle. And it's cool. I applaud them for the idea.
It would be a good thing if it was literally for the usage. If it wasn't social media, it was like a place to, as a photographer, put your photography out and maybe, connect with other people and, deal with like photo criticism or, other things like that in a way that like helped you understand your work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With my photography in the last year, I've gotten close enough with like more older photographers like Michael Lichter where I send him every once in a while a folder of images I'm proud of for him to break them down for me.
Yep.
And in that process, it makes me look at photography differently. Yeah. It's almost like the criticism has helped me. And I don't want him to say this is all amazing. It's like, it feels good when he does in the midst of, oh, I don't like this or what's going on here.
Yeah.
Obviously some of that in photography is like, you don't control that, but you see an image and you shoot it and then you put it through someone else's eye that's also a photographer and you got to take it with a grain of salt, whatever that is, right?
But even just doing that and getting criticism, outreaching for it, if you will, is almost in line with like just film photography, for example, where it's more intentional.
Yeah.
You're slowing down. You're actually thinking about these things instead of just blasting off photos and going into Lightroom and editing the shit out of them. Oh, why don't you like my photo? Like, there's more to it than color.
Yeah.
Composition's huge. There's just so many aspects to it. And a really interesting thing, not to change the subject too much, for someone like me to be talking with you or you talking to Lichter is there's all these new people coming into the space, which is great, and expecting a certain outcome, not realizing that the people they looked up to a year ago that they think they're on the same level with have been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. They might have not have even been alive for that long.
Yeah.
So you can't just jump some rope and get there. It's not, there's a bit of a process involved. My generation and the generation after me is impatient and they want the fast and now. For what? I don't know, because this is just something you should enjoy. You know? And with that enjoyment, you can make a living, you can find a way to do it.
In time. Yeah, for sure.
So it's just interesting. Or like bike builder, whatever it may be, you're coming into a space, like there are legends, there are OGs, there are people that have been doing this for a while, just something to keep mindful of. And you can learn from those people, not hate on them,
That's a good point. I think it's a relevant point to make. And here's the deal. It's like, if you look at certain like photographers, Chopsky's a great friend of mine, a great dude, a very, very great photographer. He's chipping his name into the wall of the Harley Davidson culture photographically, but his work excels on social media. Mm-hmm. I guess if I was to say anything, it's like heavy editing becomes a dated process. The same way heavily customizing a bike can almost date it to an era in which the bike was designed.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. And it also just comes back down to like just being different art forms.
Yeah.
Like if you got a guy that's really into vintage choppers with his whole heart, he loves it. And then you got an engineer like Juan or whatever.
Yeah.
Who's just really, really into this new VVT and this new machine. They see a picture of the chopper, they're probably going to swipe past. They see, it's just everyone's got different likes, but there is maybe what you're referring to is more of a popular culture as far as what's popular photographically. Yeah,
let me rephrase that, because now thinking about it, it sounds like I'm saying that Chopsky stuff is, it's going to be dated. No, that's what I'm saying. It's a different style.
It's recognizable to a time, I guess.
It is. But I think that like at the same time, it's the same way you can look at a bike that, is dope, but it has like a time period stamp on it, the same way you can look at photography. But I think that like one thing you and I have both nerded out, and I remember, you getting into film photography and I getting into it was kind of in the same space.
Yeah, I think so.
It was a time frame, because I come out here a lot. We have conversations. Every time I get around you, we're like, all right, dude, what are you doing? What's the new thing?
What camera you got?
But film makes no sense. It makes no sense to the concept of where we're at in this world. Like where everything's going, film is like such an ass backwards way of thinking. But in the process of doing it, you're being reconnected with like the essence of why you do it.
Yeah. Kind of a similar story. Like I got a friend that's a lineman, power lines and shit. Yeah. And when you go through that process, the vets that have been doing it for 30 years make you do shit that makes no sense. But you have to learn the fundamentals of why something works by doing shit that doesn't make sense anymore. So like it doesn't make sense for us to spend $500 on film for a road trip and then go shoot a couple photos very slow, not be able to see what they look like, and then come back and spend a bunch of money to get them developed and printed and whatever. But in the process of slowing down and literally just getting back to the fundamentals, especially with a Olympus OM10 or your AE1, where it's you might have a light meter, but you got to everything's manual.
Yeah.
It forces you to learn, and when you use a prime lens, it forces you to learn composition. Like you, and I'm sure, I'm in the same boat as there's a lot of people reaching out about photography. Hey, like, how can I get this look out? And now I just tell them, go shoot some film with a manual camera. Your first roll is not going to be very good. Your second roll, not going to be much better. But in learning that, mine weren't either.
Yeah.
But in learning that, it'll help you understand color. It'll help you understand composition,
light,
shutter speed, light. Just if you can master light, you're pretty chill. You're set, But just going back to the basics, there's not, the new camera isn't going to make you that much better a photographer.
I've been saying this for a while, and maybe you can attest to it. It's easy to buy the best equipment, and it's easy to watch the YouTube videos and figure out how to use the equipment to the very just the basic level of understanding it, right? And if you put a hot chick in front of the camera, it's easy to be a badass photographer. You put a badass bike in front of the camera, you put a badass landscape. It's all easy when you're looking at badass shit. But I think what happens is we all go down that path of shooting beautiful things. Mm-hmm. And then the real art of photography is to take mundane and normal things and make them beautiful. And that's where it gets hard. That's where the artistry comes in, the angles, the lighting, all those basics that come into taking a photo. You got to learn how to manipulate those in a way to make it look like the way you're seeing it as a human, but also maybe change a few things in a way to make it more surreal in a way.
I mean, the one of the main reasons things that got me into film, there's this girl that grew up in my neighborhood. Never really knew her, but I saw her work. And when I actually got into photography, I didn't understand what it was about her photos that told such a story. I just looked at it and I'm like, it's just a dude sitting in a field, or it's just that she does a lot of portraits. And then when I realized it was film, I was like, oh shit. So that was kind of my path of understanding how to create something like that I might not. Film was my excuse to try that, right? And understand it in the way that I saw it through her work. Because you're right, you can see some like banger photo with some cool shit, but to see a photo of a person or a place or a thing and feel something is a trip. And once that happens, you're like, all right, I understand why I'm doing it now, you know? Yeah. Just wild.
Yeah, telling a story through like ordinary circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I've always said. It's like some of my mentors in photography are people that, I hate to say it this way because it sounds like I'm saying the women that this man shot were not attractive or not this. They were very beautiful women. But I like to use the word like Maxim magazine, if you remember that. It was voluptuous, everything. It's like big old things. Yeah. It's like you take a picture of those, you don't got to really try. You can do it with a camera phone. It'd be fucking awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Like,
it's almost like another weird comparison, but classical music. Yeah. When I was a kid and I heard classical music, I didn't understand that there was a format to it. I didn't understand all the aspects that go into it because you just hear some shit that doesn't sound like AC/DC or whatever. Yeah. And then I took some class in school and like learned about it. And I'm not saying I listen to classical, but I can sit there and like understand and appreciate it. Yeah. And I think the same thing goes with any art form. You know, there's that argument of, well, why'd that Van Gogh sell for this much? Just a fucking bunch of lines. I could do that with a crayon. But there's more to it. Yeah. You know, like you just look a little deeper into it. And the same thing goes for photography. Tons of different ways to capture it, tons of different ways to interpret it, you know. Yep.
I've been wanting to find ways to remove the subject or the it's not so much about the person I'm shooting or the bike I'm shooting, but I want to produce photography through motorcycling that invokes the emotion that other riders get through using the rider or bike in the photo, to where it's like I got good at taking pictures of my paint jobs. I got good at taking pictures of my bike. I got good at taking pictures of my wife. But now I want to be good at taking pictures to explain the feelings that I get when I travel on motorcycles or when I do any said subject in my life. Yeah. And that's where film came into me, to where I started following guys that, you know, I'm looking at some of their photography and I'm going, why the fuck is this picture of Waffle House? Why did I just buy it? Yep. You know, and you do that. And, you know, as a fan of photography, like, it's also my way of paying respects to the things that inspire me. Like, I want to have art from the people that are inspiring me in my house.
For sure. Something to look at, something to appreciate. No different than a painter buying a painting from another painter, you know? Exactly. And I've been there before too. I'll see something, be like, oh, you better sell prints. You know, it's, whereas you could have the crispiest rad image of a bike that I really love. Yeah. But it's not something I want maybe on my wall in for my house. You know? I don't know. It's just a weird one. It's
what you're going to print versus what you're going to post.
Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, the photo books that I have at home, like I just bought another one yesterday to fill up because I got a pile of prints coming out. like for me to sit down and look through that is so much better than just like looking through a feed of curated, even my own stuff, curated photos. Like, yeah, I remember that was cool. But there was another one I might have liked more as an individual, but I figured this one would do better, you know? But it's just real life. And that's what I think from any generation, the look of film is so nostalgic. It's like if I go out on a Friday night with some friends and I bring my little point and shoot, got the flash on, even if they're all blurry and out of focus, I'm going to like those photos more than the perfect ones I took on an iPhone or that was edited. There's just, again, it's so much of a story. That blur probably meant I was fucking hammered or was just having a good time or it was windy or whatever, you know. I saw some funny thing the other day of a professional wedding photographer but making a statement on all the new people making blurry wedding photos because that's a thing now. And that resembles a bit of emotion. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I understand what you're saying. My son's a musician in a way. When he has an idea, he tells me, and I go shoot pictures of him. And his mom's a photographer as well. My photography initial jump came from her when we were together, and she was going to college for photography. So she went to college and would come home with these books and these prints because this is 2005. So digital was around, but there was still dark rooms in the campuses, right? And so I always had an affinity for that. And that's also when the magazine photographers started coming into my life as well. So I had like her and then them, and I'm like constantly in the middle of like photos. But I was like, I'm a custom painter. I'm not a photographer. Look, baby, if you just do it like I do in custom paint, you can
do it big.
But now I'm here trying to be a photographer, and it don't work.
What else can I say about the ThunderMax products and the team behind them? I have run the ThunderMax tuners on my fuel-injected Harleys for years before I met the men behind the brand. Now for the last 5 years, ThunderMax has not only supported our podcast, but have been a big supporter of everything from small events to the biggest rallies across America. For those of you who are not familiar with the ThunderMax tuners, they replaced your fuel-injected Harley ECM and O2 sensors with their proprietary ECM module and wideband O2 sensors. This allows your computer to auto-tune itself based on the readings from those wideband O2 sensors. Adding a new exhaust, cam, or big bore kit has never been easier, with the ThunderMax units eliminating the need for dyno tuning and its reoccurring costs. To learn more about their products, visit thunder-max.com. If you decide to make a purchase, remember to use the Fast Life offer code at checkout to save 10% on your order. Finally, don't forget to follow the team on Instagram at ThunderMaxEFI.
I don't know, like I have gone through times where I just wanted to be a photographer. Only like ditch video, you know, step my game up, dive into it fully and try and get some good contracts with brands that I want to work with. But there's also that fine line of like, how much are you still going to enjoy or be able to enjoy the art side of things if you're so inundated with work? Or what you could call work. But I think it's still possible. I mean, you're not going to use film professionally if you're at that level for everything, at least. So film could be your escape. That could be your art, for example. But like you were saying earlier with like maybe being in Dallas and not being surrounded by as many creatives as you could be in another area. I mean, you spend time with someone like Ben Christensen or Aaron Brimhall and they're buddies as well. But, you know, even just hanging out with Ben and being surrounded by him and just taking a quick little glance and seeing how he's noticing something and thinking about taking a picture, or Kirpius or whoever. And they love it. They love every step of the way.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. Like, you've been in these situations around these photographers that are, you know, Harley-based photographers. Like, what's that like being around them and watching, you know, Kirpius, Ben Hall, fucking Ben Christensen, Todd Bluebaugh, like all these guys as they work around these cameras?
It's funny because even before, I don't really know Brimhall, but I followed his stuff since before I was even in photography because he's just a super talented dude.
He can do pull-ups.
For sure. But, you know, being around Ben, getting to know Josh, it's just cool. It also, like, when you get to talk with someone on the same level and understand that they're also experiencing the same things that we experience, like frustrations and this, that, and the other in their work and in some projects. You know, it makes you be like, okay, I'm on the right path. But
this is normal.
It's a good learning experience. You know, it's mostly been on sets and stuff. So I'm not exactly picking their brains, but it's cool to watch them work and see how they notice things and what they're capturing. And it's not, you see some new photographer doing portraits. It's like either super close up or super far away. You see someone with experience, they're capturing it in very unique angles and settings. And, you know, something that stood out, Josh was taking some portraits of me on a recent project. And I was like, glasses, no glasses? Like, what should I? He's like, just be you. I don't want to answer that for you. Like, finding ways to capture what you're capturing in their completely natural habitat, if you will. Like, I don't like telling the guy, I tell them, hey, maybe we should bring up this topic because I think people would find it interesting given the location we're at. But I'm not like, say it this way or change this or change that. Like, your hair's fucked up because you're on a motorcycle. Don't fix your hair. You know, that type of thing. And just kind of staying true to the soul of what you're trying to capture.
Okay, yeah.
You know? So that's part of it. Just not overthinking shit. Just doing it. That's the way I learn. Just doing things, you know.
It would be amazing, like, to and you kind of sparked a whole interesting conversation in my head that I'm going to try to make interesting for you guys about being in this presence of all these people that capture these images for Harley Davidson and how they do it, how they see it. Like, how do you find the image? How do you find the composition? You know, like what you're saying about Josh Kirby is telling you, like, to, you know, just be natural versus I have ways that I've found to make people feel comfortable just being normal around their bike. You know, if I'm taking a portrait of somebody with their bike, I feel like if I shot the bike and them standing, they're doing what they think makes them look cool. And I do this. I think I look cool like this.
I'm hard. Stay hard. But what I tell them is like, hey man, I want you to, like, just move your bike around a little bit. Like, pick it up off the kickstand, like, act like you're moving it. And in that process, that this natural connection to them and their motorcycle starts to happen as they're moving it around. And yeah, you're not getting that perfect framed badassery, but you're getting this, like, man-machine connection that I actually enjoy. Yeah. And I can't lean on this that's every portrait I ever do. This is how you do it. It's the only way you can do it. But it's a way for me to get some natural out of a very like, insecure is the wrong word. I mean, if you're
a very uncomfortable person, you know, so
I'll just take my pants off and say, let me take pictures of you. No.
How do you feel about, like, being on the other end of the camera lens, though?
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
It just depends. I mean, I enjoy seeing pictures of myself with my friends, having good times. You know, when we were, it's pretty rare I get that opportunity to have someone that knows what they're doing. Yeah. Capture me, for lack of a better phrase. But when I do, I love it. I'm picky and I like capturing what I like to capture, but if I'm on my deathbed, I could really care less about the pictures of me. Yeah. I just want to look back on the good times. Yeah, for sure. And that's the only thing that got me into photography. Like, taking that video with the GoPro, I did it because I wanted to look back and see that. The video that the guys were talking about that Rob showed them that, like, got me the job. Yeah. That was like, I would go on camping trips with buddies and just take a couple videos and make a quick little edit because I wanted to look back on that one night when I'm just not doing shit and be like, damn, that was cool. Yeah. I want to go get out and live. Like, it's like a self-inspiration thing. So long story, super long. Yeah, I'll stay behind the camera, you know.
There's something to it. I think for me, like, jumping behind a camera was a way to check the ego a little bit. Yep. You know, and most people say, like, well, you're not fucking behind it enough. Working, yeah. But the thing is, like, when you get behind a camera, like, you're looking at everybody and finding their best angles. taking a photo of somebody and seeing them the way I see them and handing them that, airdropping that photo or whatever the case may be. It's like, yo, dude, like, I love this photo of you.
Yeah.
Here
it is. That was all my Christmas gifts this year. I made some canvas prints, some metal prints. And I guess it kind of parallels the whole, like, if you're trying to be a photographer, buying the gear isn't going to make you a better thing. Like, me buying you something fancy doesn't necessarily show how I feel about our connection, relationship, whatever. But me giving you something that I took the time to create that reminds me of you or I think you would like is, I mean, if someone gave me something like that, I'd be stoked. You know? It's just a different realm. But
how has the path of, like, just taking away video, because you're very multifaceted. You're a videographer in my opinion, that in our motorcycle scene, YouTube space, which I say YouTube space with high regard, because that's TV, that's Fox now, that's fucking CBS, right? Your progression is phenomenal, and watching the video day, watching the 200 episode drop and seeing all the production that goes into it, seeing how you've kind of evolved in a way, which it sucks because when I say this, I feel like I'm saying, like, oh man, like, you've come a long way. Like, when you say that, like, it's not like,
no, I know
you've grown in a way that I'm still growing and I'm very far behind you, but I look at that as inspiration. And I see the level of, like, color grading, the how hard it is to work with different cameras to make one video, to make it all look the same movie,
Yeah.
And dude, you've done documentary-esque shit now.
Yeah, which is like a trip, because I love that. I love that stuff. A lot of the stuff I love is really hard to make in a 4-day time span, 52 weeks out of the year. So, like, even looking at some of my older stuff that I did for freelance, and I was like, I'm going to put my heart and soul into it because I want them to hire me back again.
Yeah.
There was a lot more time, and I would cross a lot of my T's and dot my I's compared to, I just can't with this stuff. I try to, and I try to find ways around it. But in that progression, it's just that. It's doing it 52 weeks out of the year. I took my first vacation 2 weeks ago in 4 years that didn't have to do with traveling and filming on a motorcycle. And that was amazing because I was just getting burnt the fuck out.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, when I got back, I wanted to stay here until midnight and, like, finish all that shit, knowing there wouldn't be time on Tuesday night because I enjoyed it. But when you're doing it nonstop, there's the potential of being like, why do I bother? Because we've had that conversation of you could get just as many views by just holding a single GoPro and chopping it up. But it's not about that, and being able to put, like, I'm comfortable with what we put out there. I think it's cool, and I'm glad that other people enjoy it. Would I like to have it be a little more polished? Yeah, but you just can't, you can't do that on that pace while still trying to live a little bit of a life,
Yeah, but I
guess what I'm getting at is, like, that is what fuels progression. Like, just not every week I get a new opportunity to test out new things, try new color. Every trip I get the chance to capture something in a different way with a different camera, tell a different story. So I feel blessed to be able to do that nonstop and be getting, my job is to get better, if you will.
Yeah. It's should always be that. So what about, like, I mean, if anybody in the motorcycle YouTube space would have this notion or this goal or dream, or maybe even notion is the best word. Yeah. Thoughts of ever trying to do something bigger than a YouTube video? Like, I mean, you're at a point where, but I guess that to maybe layer a foundation before you answer that, after you get out of YouTube, you get into a place where you don't control editing. You don't control this. You control, you're a director, so you got the shot, but then it goes to an editing. It goes to, you got a DP. You got all these other people that are doing things. But then you have like the run and gun documentary style. Like, so maybe the question would be like, since you can produce an hour-long video full of all the things it needs to carry your interest throughout the whole time, have you thought of other things that you want to, other stories you want to tell outside of the space that you're already kind of in?
Yeah, I'll keep it vague. I mean, there's some of the stuff I'm still thinking about, and it's not something I plan on acting on super soon, just again with the, I don't know when the next time I'm going to have a week off is, but there are things I'd like to do artistically, whether I even share them or not. There's things I want to make, and that just fuels the creativity with this even more.
Yeah.
As far as like that second part, having it in someone else's hands, I think that would be cool to be part of a project that's like bigger than me, bigger than us.
Yeah.
And get to see the outcome of it. But I like sitting there and I like putting stuff together, you know?
Yeah. Because you're taking all these little, like, what people maybe they don't understand about the editing process, because people that don't capture, I don't think they understand the control through editing.
Yeah.
The control of the creative, like, way it's presented, right?
Yeah, and the intent behind capturing a certain shot a certain way and why you did that in terms of how you plan to edit it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I've edited other people's stuff that did great work, and I'd like to think I did a good job. And it's like when you deal with a production company or some professionals, and you are getting this Dropbox of like beautiful work, it's easier to come out with something that looks good than maybe some of my work.
Well, maybe you come to these crossroads in all the different aspects, because you're wearing like 40 hats, right?
Yeah, a couple.
Drone operator, fucking this, that, audio, fucking lighting, all this. So I guess when someone else that's a professional in that one kind of space, or maybe a multiple spaces, like brings you something, it's like, I get it, you know?
I mean, I had way before I could have ever handled it. I had someone reach out that I worked with in a different industry years before, and she's like, I like what you do. I got a marketing contract. It was some car company, like big car company. I'm going down to Mexico and I want you to produce this. And I'm kind of glad I didn't. It would have been a nightmare, because even my skills now would have been pushing it. But I don't know. I mean, professionally, I would love to work at least at some point for a short amount of time with a group of like-minded people. Right now, I really enjoy essentially being the only one that has input in the final project. For years, I've wanted to do just passion projects. You know, like I want to start a channel, and even if it's one video a year with no intent of it being a business, just put out stuff that is only something through my eyes. Like I'm putting something out through their eyes and now our eyes, but if it was solely my content, it would be very different.
Yeah.
The storytelling would be different. The format would be different. You know, the coloring, the pace, a little different.
What you just said, I think, is like an epiphany on my own end. Social media inspired me to create content, but the art has now surpassed the reasons to do it on social media. Yeah. So now I want to make things and I want to put it out there. And I want people to experience it and see it, but it's not so much that I need it to like hit a number to justify its like value to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good, in my, 50,000 photo camera roll, there's a good 5 or 6 videos that I'll go back on here and there and just fucking watch on repeat on just short little things. And I'm like, when I made that, I felt it. And when I watch it, I feel how I did when I made it. Yeah. Just like taking a good photo and getting it back from the lab, and you're like, damn, that's exactly what I was going for. Yeah. That's enough to keep me going to want to try new things. Because for no sane man, there's keeping up with the Joneses shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's not how you create art.
It's just not. Yeah, it's not how it works. Keeping up your quality and competing with. I was going to go somewhere, but in my learning process along the way, you get a camera and you get a lens.
Yeah.
Then you get this new lens after you learn some fundamentals. Say it's a 85. And all you want to do is shoot with that, even though it's not really right for other scenarios. But you're just overdoing it, and then you learn that. Then you learn some new skill in editing or trying another lens, and you overdo it. But every time you put one of those on a back burner, it's just another tool in your toolbox.
Yeah.
So you're out here like learning new tools and experimenting with things, and that's always fun. Like when I learned how to, in the early stages of sound design, it was bad, but like way too loud or way too the off tempo, or like the timing was off, like a motor noise. But you overdo it for a bit, then you put it on the back burner, and then it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
And then like color, I just started coloring videos like a couple months ago, because it was never something I thought was a priority in our schedule. And then I started digging into color a little bit, and you see the end result, you're like, damn, okay, like that changed the whole game.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning that. You know, skin tones can be tough. Matching different cameras is still very tough. But it's also, I guess it just goes back to being our thing and being independent. There's really no one that's going to tell me something I either don't know or that's going to have much of an influence, aside from if I'm getting constructive feedback from someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then it also ties into like, I'm getting a new chance every week to try something new and learn from it. If there's an old video, there's plenty of old videos that I watch that I'm not fond of. But I knew where I was at when I made it. I knew the crazy week we were going through. I knew this and that. And I take it for that, you know. And most people, like, anyone can show someone a video that's just like enthusiastic and stoked to see what you're showing them, whether it was filmed on a GoPro or a Komodo or an iPhone. And a lot of people like won't even know the difference.
Yeah, they won't know.
You know,
yeah.
So that's one thing I can appreciate, but also feel the opposite way about. You know, it's like I want someone to know, like, damn, that was filmed in S-Log 3, and he really put in an effort to color that, because that scenario is really tough.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about like artistry is like surface level, you start creating art I don't want to say it that it's too broad of a way to say it, but you start doing shit. Like as a custom painter, I start painting for the customer, and then you get to a certain point and you start painting for the respect and the response of other painters, because you want them to see your shit and be like, shit style, can't say anything about it. And that's when you really win. And I think that like as a photographer, you know, or photographer, videographer, anything creative, like art wise, it's such a caveat, because art is always going to be subjective to whoever's viewing it. Yeah. But I also like when I see your photography through your pages, you know, which I do deep dives every once in a while. You make a post or a carousel, and I'm like, oh shit, my man's been fucking, he's been developing, you know? Yeah. And I go down, I'm like, oh, that's rad. That's this. And, so I put my shit up to that. Yeah. Like I don't want to be, it's not that I want to be better and I want to be like, oh, I'm the best at fucking film.
But
like
they did this in a really cool way. I want to try that. Yeah. You know?
I am envious of the fact that you live in a place that's full of like creative, like people from videography, digital photography, fucking film, all that stuff. And I say that not to discredit the people in the world that I live in, but there's such a saturation of people into all these fields that it's natural for there to be more people in motorcycling than you know, said other areas.
For sure.
You know, we've been nerding out on photography since I got here today, and you know, the film stuff, and like you showing me your film cameras and like some of the stuff that you've learned in your processes. It's so important to see your progress on the same way that I'm like seeing mine in my own journey, right? I mean, I guess there's a jealousy because you live in a fucking photogenic place that like I'm gonna go fucking 20 minutes away. And
I mean, even my you know, just my morning run up in the trails. I cross the main road, like leave from my house with my two shoes, and up there it's like just beautiful. There's hiking, there's trails. I'm really not a city guy, but going out to the desert, Joshua Tree's 3 hours away. Big Bear's a couple hours away. I can be at the coast in 20 minutes if I'm ripping, you know, and just, there is a lot of beautiful shit, you know, and I'll spend time in the city and I'm looking at places in the city. I'm like, oh, I don't want to live surrounded by concrete, you know?
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing the beauty. I enjoy it. It's cool having all the creative people around, but in that mix, there are people I don't care to, I'm not even saying our culture, the motorcycle thing or what we do, but LA people.
Yeah, pretentiousness,
you know, pretentious and just
Yeah.
like people after it for the social media or after it for the clout, or it's like, I want to hang out and go ride my motorcycle and take pictures, and hopefully I like them. And someone else
I feel like
does too.
art fuels the pretentiousness in other people.
Yeah, I mean, look at you know, some bigwig art museum and the people that are in there.
Yeah.
You could give them a second chance and sit down and talk to them. And
like going back and like deep diving into Andy Warhol's life, you realize that like this dude's, you know, like he has art. There's resonation in some of the things I've seen he's done that I like.
Yeah.
But then you find out how connected he was to the more or less social scene of New York. And you realize, oh, okay, well, like there's a big part of like his success that goes into his social connections that he created in the place he lived.
Yeah.
So, you know, is he really the best artist of his time, or is he like great at partying and he had some good fucking ideas?
I mean, that's what I thought was a route you were going to take earlier when you're asking about like, hey, if someone's going to get into this, like if someone were to ask me, you know, I want to do something like you're doing. How do I, and they're from here, how do I get into that? Or wherever. Make good friends and spend time around good people. Because having a cool bike around assholes or what's I heard a flat individual isn't going to get you very far, because the story you're capturing has to be interesting for the capture to be interesting to an extent, right?
Yeah.
So like when we're motorcycle at like what we capture, to me is so much easier to make look good because there's so much motion. Stuff is always like video wise.
Yeah.
There's always movement. There's always a cool background. There's always close-ups that I can get of a wheel ripping down the asphalt at 90 miles an hour. There's always a smile or good food or a fucking sunset or crazy winds and the bike is blowing. Like I like movement. I like a lot of movement. And I'm sure that shows in some of the video stuff, but yeah, whether you're trying to network and take a step in the right direction or just become a better artist, you're still going to want to be surrounded by good people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's that, man. You know, like this morning I woke up around 7 a.m. and had about half a roll of film left in the AE1. I wanted to get up and walk the streets of Venice, and you know where my wife's aunt lives is, you know, maybe a mile from the beach. Okay. So I walked down, did Abbott Kennedy. I don't know street photography and I don't know architectural photography. Yeah. I don't know a lot of that, but what I did was I walked down the street and I tried to pay attention to light, things that caught my eye. I'm trying to train myself to see photography. Because in a motorcycle world, on a bike, I can show you all the good shots, the money shots. You know, if this was porn, I got you, buddy.
Got you.
Yeah. But in life, you know, in these projects I mentioned to you early on, if I'm going to tell a broader story, the broader story can't be an Instagram highlight reel. It has to be photography that moves people to carry them on the journey. And you have to do that by multiple sources of photographic styles. Yeah.
Even, you know, a piece of advice I learned early on, like if you were trying to send a pitch deck to someone or you're trying to get a job and here's my portfolio.
Yeah.
If your job was to go out to the desert and capture some motorcycle and some guy, you better include like a close-up photo of the dirt and a close-up photo, like giving them the whole sense of where you are and not just like every single photo is a motorcycle pic. It's like doing street photography. And I was in Venice like 3 weeks ago doing the same thing. And I'm by no means a street photographer.
Neither am I.
But like you said, like it's the art of noticing that leads you to the art of photography. Seeing something that the other 50 people behind you walking are not even going to notice, and then taking the time to think about how you want to capture it is a pretty unique skill. You know, I had somewhere else to go with that, but
No, yeah, no, you're on the right track.
Those photos I was showing you going on a trip with a friend of mine, who didn't know how to use a manual press, where all the background is in focus, but me, the subject, was not.
If you put a blog out explaining that whole roll of film, that would be interesting to me.
Yeah, and like when I'm out with her, I will take those photos as well.
Yeah,
you know, of someone looking at a view, because the story you're trying to tell, you can acknowledge that there's a human there looking at the view. You don't need them to be in focus, but you want what they're looking at to be in focus, and that's the picture. It's different with a bike. You're not going to have every photo of your bike out of focus, but that's I've never heard that. That's a unique way of looking at it, where you know where you're at is the picture, kind of.
He had this house in a part of Dallas, and you know his name is Tim O'Keefe, and he's a huge inspiration to me photographically. And when I'm very lucky to have him as somebody that would critique me, you know, give me just any of his knowledge, because he's an artist before he's a photographer. Yeah. And I respect that. He would just tell me, he's like, you know what, I'm going to go shoot every bike that comes through here. I'm going to shoot them right there over there in that parking lot. And every time, you'll never know through the photos that was taken in that parking lot. Yeah. Because, you know, like, he's a chopper dude, right? Yeah. So he's the guy that has an old fucking, you know, Canon, you know, 5D Mark II. There's like 3 more iterations that's been there since then. He's a 70-200 guy through and through. He has other ones, but that's the one I'm going to leave everything else here, and this is it. Yeah. And so there's something to that I love. There's something to, like, you know, and for you guys listening, you know, this is where we're going to probably get deeper into like nerd talk on photography, but as you start to acquire all these other lenses and things and drones and all this thing to capture a crisp image, leaving on your bike or leaving on a road trip and taking one lens and having to tell the entire story in the confines of that one thing is a challenge that's fun.
Yeah, and that in itself tells a story.
If you're looking for high quality motorcycle lighting, then check out Custom Dynamics. It doesn't matter if your motorcycle has been around the block or it's fresh off the showroom floor. They offer a wide range of LED lighting options for various models, as well as custom applications. They have been in business for over 25 years and are committed to providing top-notch products at competitive prices. On my FXR chopper, I'm running one of their custom application LED taillight strips and their industry standard 5.75 LED headlight. And on my Lowrider ST, I have been running their Pro Beam Series LED turn signals, tail light, and headlight. You can check out their website at customdynamics.com to explore the available LED lighting options for your motorcycle. And don't forget to follow them on Instagram at Custom Dynamics.
It does. If you went on a trip with only a wide angle lens, your story is going to be something along the lines of the vast landscapes you saw. Or if I was at the Grand Canyon a couple weeks ago and I took this photo with the point and shoot of like how many fucking people were there. Yeah. Like that's your deal. Whereas if you were only shooting with a 200 or some prime that's, you know, more narrow, your story is going to be about that close up beauty, you know, whatever it is. Yeah. So it's just a cool thing. And that's been heaven for me. Like that trip I went on, that was like my first road trip in 4 years that I got to shoot that didn't have to do with work. Yeah. I brought a 50 mil, the Olympus, and I brought the 28 mil. That was the Ricoh GR10, the old point shoot film camera. And like, so you got 2 options. I want to do some portraits, or like if I'm going on, we went on like a huge fucking hike and like, I'm not bringing both. Yeah. So you pick one, you take photos of that. And I mean, when I bought my first full frame camera and was going to dive into video, I could only afford one lens. Yeah. So I got a 35 millimeter prime 1.4. And my lack of knowledge helped me. Like now I would know, okay, just getting closer doesn't equate to using a 35 here doesn't equate to using an 85 here, 80 here. It's the compression, everything is different. You're telling a different story. But I learned to work with having what I got. And then you go through this period when you start to get better, you start to just do your thing. Oh, I need more gear. Well, the $6,000 camera you just bought is going to be outdated in 2 years, whereas like vintage doesn't fade. That fucking Olympus, like my dad has one of those from, I think that's from like 84 or something like that. Obviously there's better technology, but that's not why I'm using it.
Yeah.
And like once you get into the micro, just the computerized shit, it's always going to get better. And the same thing with bikes. Like I can understand why there's diehard chopper guys. And I honestly, the more time I spend on one of these, the more time I want to build another FXR or just build something from scratch that I built so I know how to fix. It's carbureted, so it's got the soul. It's, like you said, like my FXR had like 4 wide, like nothing. I didn't even have blinkers. Didn't have brights. Pretty sure my brake lights didn't work. No, nothing, and I love that. And that's why that's why choppers and film go so well together. Yeah. It's the people who ride choppers appreciate life for what it is and the simplicity of the art that's being created around that for the people that do create that art.
No, that's a good analogy. That's a good compare, like a fusion of it, right?
Yeah.
When you take a film photo, like you don't see it. You don't know if you got it. You don't know if you nailed it. You don't know if everything works. And so whatever you get, you tend to love it more than the photo that let me paint this picture better. On a digital camera, I can take 10 shots quickly of the same everything and find the one of the 10 that's perfect. Yeah. And the film, you shoot it, you just I feel good about it.
Like,
all right,
that was cool.
Next shot.
Yeah.
And then when you get it back, if it actually is anywhere in the fucking nailed zone, which is whatever that is for you, then you have a different appreciation to it. And you know what sucks is it sucks, but it's also like I appreciate it. As I've shot more film over the last year and a half, when I go look at the film I get back, I'm just more connected to it. Oh yeah. I've got bangers. I've got shots. I've got shots that have gone viral for what a picture can go viral for. That I took with my fucking camera, edited on my computer, saw with my lens. And it means a lot to have that. But I got photos that mean a lot to me, regardless of whether it means anything to anybody else.
Yeah. I was, probably a year ago, I went just beach camping with some friends. There's a site around here. If you get there same day, $30 for a site, and you just go camp on the beach, go party and do whatever. Anyway, it was like a really close group of friends that I don't get to see super often. And my buddy Luke, who's super into film, like fucking, he'll come back from a road trip with a gallon bag full of rolls.
Oh, my man.
Lord's work. He's just here on an overnight camping trip, and in his trunk is like 12 film cameras. He's got a Polaroid. And anyway, I sat down there and I was getting my stuff printed, my film at the time, but I was never putting it in a book or whatever. Same deal. He had a couple binders of film photos in his trunk. It's like the next morning, we're just hungover and just not feeling too hot. And I see someone else looking through. What is that? And he brings it over. So I'm just looking through like almost his prized possessions, right? Like his favorite photos in this book. So right after that, I started throwing them in a binder, and same deal. I got a slow day or not feeling too hot and I'm at home, go look through it. That's
it's almost like your own. It's like it's a uncurated. Well, it's a book, right? Yeah. Book for you to kind of like look at your shit, because I hate scrolling my phone, man. And I really do.
It's tactile. Like you're talking about, we had conversations about magazines. We have conversations about books. There is more to life than scrolling through a fucking phone. Yeah. If you can sit down and read a book for 2 hours and appreciate it, or you can sit down and look through old photos versus like, again, just scrolling through your phone, and like, it's just a very different feel. I think people need to get back to real living, because so much of life has been swept away in the internet, in any realm, not just what we do. No, I fucking love reading, and I love photo books, and, getting out in nature and not bringing the phone, or, hunting's a big one I've wanted. You know who Cameron Haynes is? Yeah. So like I've read I've read one of his books, but many, many times over, and watched some of his stuff. and learning from something like that, I was going to mention it when we were talking with the guys, like getting out and riding, you know, there's nothing like it to someone like him, getting out in the wilderness and hiking through some shit that even the average athlete couldn't do.
Yeah.
And separating yourself from the rest of the world, for him, there's nothing else like it. For someone who loves books.
Yeah.
Curling up with a fucking shot of vodka, you know, whatever. There's nothing like it. So like whatever you're into and whoever you are, finding that. Because if you're going to waste your time on social media when you haven't found that thing, social media is great. There's time and place. But if you aren't feeling yourself and you're spending time on that, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I think it's just going to get harder for kids that grew up with it. Like, I think I was probably the last generation that didn't grow up with social media, you know?
So what year were you born?
96.
Okay. You're same my brother. Yeah.
So when iPod Touch came out, I discovered porn. Game over. No, I'm kidding. But those were the days.
So you're not finding porn in the woods like we had to.
Yeah,
like,
come on. But like at that time, we were still riding bikes and fucking around and shooting each other with BB guns and getting dirty and bleeding. And
you got to experience some of pre-internet subconsciousness, right? Mm-hmm. Like my daughter was born in 2002, so she was born before the internet took over the world, but she was not conscious to the world.
Yeah,
you know, prior to.
And what I love, you know, especially being around these guys, but Lance Jr., the way he's raising his son, like you see parents, I saw a skit recently, like a kid falls and the parent, oh my God, let's get some Neosporin, and their dad comes over and gets a pile of dirt and fucking smacks it on, rubs it off. Like the way Junior is raising his kid, he is a fucking menace on a bicycle. He's like 3 years old and he's dropping in on quarter pipes.
Damn.
And like he's taking him mountain biking and he's crashing. He's doing all these things. And same with his sister with gymnastics and blah, blah, where they're growing up with that as their normal. So no doubt one or both of them is going to be a pro athlete. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not the point, but like they're getting outside. And then there's some other kid where his parents are busy because they're stuck in the rat race and he's on an iPad. He doesn't know any better. Yeah. He's going to grow up and not be able to fix his car when it's broken down. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a Tesla, but you know, it's like.
Have you tried turning it off and restarting
Turning it back on. I guess it's hard for me to see people getting lost and making complaints about why their life isn't right. And they're just not doing it right.
Yeah.
You know?
The irony to it is like, sometimes I think the easiest thing for people to find themselves is to just look and research and find things that resonate. There's just so much information. There's so much opportunity to be inspired. Mm-hmm. And you just got to be the person that like puts yourself in a place to find it.
And be smart about where you're putting your energy.
Yeah. You know, honestly, man, like I think books are going to become more and more wanted over the next like 2 years while social media figures out what the fuck they want to be.
Yeah. I don't know where that goes. It's the social media thing. You know, it's a big old giant monster, but goes back, and not that books are vintage because books are just books.
Yeah, but when you open a book, guess what you don't see? Click my ad.
Yeah, click my ad. Buy my course. Buy this, buy that. Most of the time. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think it always just circles back to like diving into something and trying new things because you won't know what you like if you don't.
Well, there's never been a better time to try anything, right?
Yeah.
You have the world's knowledge at the fingertips of your ability to absorb it, right? I absorbed a lot of photography and videography content before I ever even really hit the shutter button, before I ever even tried to make a video.
Yeah.
And sometimes that made it harder to hit the button, you know? And we were talking about that after watching the 200th drop tonight. I was like, you know, I know that if I really, really fucking like turned all the shit that I have on and did this, I can make something cinematic, but it's not sustainable for me in my life.
No, for sure. It's, I haven't watched a tutorial, you know, having to do with editing or anything in a long time, but that's how I learned, you know. So I didn't go to school. Like it was all having an interest and looking at it. So when people ask like, hey, how do you do this? I'm happy to help you, but to try and figure it out. You know, go watch a video, because you're going to actually learn it that way. If I tell you, you're going to do it once, say thank you, and then be lost next time.
Yeah.
Like, we have so many resources at our hands that we might as well take care of them. I'm not saying at all that I don't like helping people and sharing knowledge, but it's like there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain that in words.
Yeah.
You know, versus like there's a video that's like 2 minutes long that does it thoroughly if you just do the dive.
Yeah.
You know?
And
when you start editing a video, I have this idea, or I've seen this done before. How do I do this? And then you Google it. I'm mid editing.
Yeah.
I'm now at that point where I got to learn how to do this thing.
Yeah, mid edit.
And I go over here to YouTube, like, how do you speed ramp? And then bam, like, oh shit, okay, now I'm playing with that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember learning like 3D titles with After Effects, which I never use now because they're pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
When I learned how to do it, in the process, at least at that time, there's this one box that if you didn't check, you would be like entirely fucked. So when you're doing that tracking, if the computer can't compute it, you have to go frame by frame and manually. So say I draw a box around this water bottle, and there's like 20 points around it, and the camera's moving, but in that camera moving, this moved a little bit. So every time I got to go fix every fucking 20 dots, 24 frames a second, or literally at that case, I was filming in 120 and trying to do it in slow-mo. If it's 3 seconds, that's 360 times. You have to go, and you get to the end and you fucking forgot to check the box. Sucked at the time, but I learned it pretty well because going through that. So it's the same thing, just trial error. You find something you want to do when you're editing a video, you look it up. It came out all right. Next time we'll try it again. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. Editing is super fun. More so when it's not on a crazy schedule. And when you're just doing it for yourself, which I still try to do a couple times a year.
If you stay in love with motorcycles, I think that like what you're going to create in the next 20-year span is going to be defiant on like the world that we have in motorcycles because of where you started, what you're doing now with Two Lane Life, your passion for photography, videoing. You're young, and with that youngness, it's like you have so much more ahead of you, as long as you don't,
fuck it up.
Yeah, you know
I would hope so. I'm always excited. I try to stay excited about the future and what things could become.
Yeah.
And be patient. And, the kind of like what you were saying before about like the guy that chooses to bring one lens, and maybe he does some of his work that way too. If you could get to a point, and I guess one of my goals, getting to a point, whether it's with them or way down the line outside, of creating things the way I want to create them. And that's what people want. Like, they're not going to hire me to do something their way. They want to hire me to do something my way. Yeah. So then it kind of always is this chase of improvement, and it's always going to be a chase of
You're the challenge.
Yeah.
You put your challenges in front of you. Yeah.
And you're not, it's always going to be work. I think that's a pretty misunderstood concept with a lot of people, seeing people do things that are appealing. It's always going to be work, but if you can find a way that it's personally challenging and engaging, if the work's enjoyable, it's not work.
Yeah, it's not. It's just,
I guess that's the saying I was trying to avoid, but like, it's not work if I forget the saying, but if you're having fun, you'll never work another day in your life. I don't know if you like what you do.
If you're having fun, you'll work harder than you ever have in your life. When you're doing something that you feel like you have control over and you're passionate about it, like, it becomes the most important work of your life. Like, every project, it becomes this is it. If I fuck this up, I'm done.
This is it,
you know what I mean? And there's a point, like there's a point where, like, when you start making some content or start making something, or you're painting a bike, or making a podcast or a video, like, you put that hurdle in front of you, like, this, I have to be everything for this. If I don't do this, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
And that helps, at least for me, it helps me kind of like go along the path. And then you start to realize, like, okay, well, all right, now that's a well-oiled machine. Like, what's the next thing that if I don't do, I'm fucked?
Yeah. Like,
let
me find another one of those.
Yeah.
Because it keeps you on the chase. You get, like you were talking earlier, if you find yourself spending time around someone and getting comfortable, it could mess up your trajectory.
Yeah.
Or the things that you could be doing. And that's a big thing. I mean, whether you're burnt out or you just don't like where you're at in general,
yeah,
you know, find the thing that drives you a little bit.
We both kind of dabble in the same worlds of film photography, and the same way we do bike trips. I think that we're nerding out about like the possibility of like, hey, dude, go buy a C10 and Waxahachie. Let's jump in the thing together and do a photo trip across the country. Like you going with Galen and Lance across the country and you're filming this stuff, and then you're fitting in some shots here and there. But those shots are really for the to promote the channel.
Yeah.
Versus the photography that you see that building over there, you want to go shoot that. You don't have a place in your life that lives. It's more for you, right?
Yeah.
So if you get into a space with other people, that's the goal. Like, hey, look, we're gonna go hard tonight.
Like you're there for the trip.
Yeah.
You're not there to capture the trip.
Yeah.
And it's like thinking back on like even my dad back in the day. He was a rock climber, ice climber.
Yeah.
And he's got all these badass photos of back in the day. Like he wasn't trying to be a fucking photographer.
Yeah.
He was just trying to capture what he was doing, but he was there to do that thing, not to take photos. And that's what, like when I went on that road trip recently, when I saw something, I fucking slammed on the brakes. I pulled over, I hit reverse. I'm like, it felt so good to be able to capture that. Whereas when we're on the road, we're on a mission, we're doing something important still. But there's a lot of shit where I'm like, damn, I would have loved to just pull over, even to snap one, or even just pull over and look at it, you know? But it's different. I mean, I put something up recently kind of along those lines where it was like, I enjoy what we do and I enjoy finding new ways to capture what I think it would be like to watch this trip from a bird's eye view. Mm. But I also enjoy like just photography for what it is and not trying, we don't force it. I mean, that's why I really enjoy what we do, because it's not like choreographed. It's not, there's no pressure.
Yeah.
Like if we have some crazy day and it's like 9 degrees and my fucking fingers are going to fall off and you can't film, like that was part of the story. I'll talk about it when we go to dinner, get warmed up. You don't have to capture anything. And that's something I've learned, and I'm sure you've learned over time too. Like you don't have to take pictures of fucking everything, but when you see something that really stands out, try and capture it.
Yeah, yeah. Watching the film progression that you've been doing with your page, and like it's actually like it's solid, dude. Like as a fan of photography, I'm like, I found myself hold on, I gotta get some too, dude. Being greedy.
You want to try this 4 roses? Yeah, next time.
All right, next time. I remember it wasn't because you changed the Instagram name recently, right?
Yeah, maybe like 2 months ago.
Okay, so it's probably a month ago that I was like scrolling down Instagram and I saw the photos and I automatically knew it was you. And it was a carousel or something in that nature. And I started diving into it and I saw I'm writing place. So I was like, damn, does he have 2 profiles? Did I follow him twice?
Get 3 more? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the name change is one thing. Part of that was like, I didn't want to only be associated with my work here. And posting more photography and posting stuff that maybe has nothing to do with that, going out on my own, whatever. And then the second part was like we were talking about earlier, like I'm shooting photography for photography and I'm probably still going to post it, whether or not it's Instagram or not. Cause it's just, I reached a point, like I like that there are a handful of people on the internet that like my shit, but I'm past the point of that holding a lot of value for me numbers wise, because it's not that's where I'll put my art and I will make my money and my living elsewhere. I don't rely on that. I'm not like a photographer.
Yeah.
Like in that way. So like, I'm just going to post it, not be spammy. Just like, here's some shit I like, please enjoy it.
In the future, as your photography grows, which is already happening and opportunities come with that, like how do you I'm planning to create motorcycle centric events that cater to artists.
Yeah.
So if I was to invite you as a invited photographer to show your work, how do you do that with like this crazy schedule with 2 Lane Life?
It better fit in. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just like I've in the earlier days, I turned away quite a bit of what would have been opportunities, what felt like opportunities at the time, because like I'm committed to this. Like it's more like, but even within that, like if I want to go on a trip with whoever, like if I want to do something for myself or with family or with someone I care about, most of them understand that like I can't really commit, whether it's 6 months or a month, something could change like that. We could be going on a trip tomorrow. I'm not saying that like this is my life. This takes precedence over everything else, but it is tough to work things in. But when I can, I do.
Yeah,
you know, and I would love that. I would love to be, what's his name? Joshua Winders, J.K. Winders. He's up there, you know, I've been following his shit for a long time. And he was hosting this event in like Swing Arm City where it was like all these creative people got together. A lot of them are adventure riders or dirt riders or scrambler guys, a couple Harleys. And I was like, damn, like we had just gotten back from a trip. I had some obligations like 3 days later, and I wanted nothing but to just rip out there. It's like a 10-hour ride both ways, but the way back's gonna be a lot more with traffic. Just rip out there, camp in the desert with fucking nothing but camera gear and then maybe a blanket. Spend some time around those people and come home, and that would have been amazing. Long story medium, I didn't make it happen, but that's the environment I want to be in for myself. Like the few times I've taken solo trips, whether I've met up with friends or whoever along the way, that's my opportunity to to take it all in for what it is. Yeah. Because the trips are amazing and I'm super stoked that I get to do this all the time. And I love what we're doing, but I want to be able to have the experience that I'm selling. Like we're selling people, not selling, like, we're just sharing what we do, but like we are kind of selling people, promoting that lifestyle. But in the act of trying to capture all that, a little bit of it, I don't want to say it's lost, but there's a bit of a disconnect between actually just taking a road trip with your boys. Yeah. So that's the type of stuff I love. I mean, I get back from a solo trip and I am just juiced up, you know, like, damn, I just did that. Just like all the people that come in here and get parts are like, dude, I just got back from a trip because we watched one of your videos. We're so stoked. Like, that's how I feel when I do something like that. So, and the three of us have talked, let's just go for a trip. Like, fuck it, no recording. But then you pull out your phone and then you got enough footage on something else. We could maybe make a video, and like our equilibrium is capturing. And I love that for us, you know, but I think that'd be cool. Make it far because I want to go far.
Well, it's almost like if you did like the whole thing with the concept of like only capturing a certain format. It's kind of like saying like, I'm only going to take a 35 millimeter lens on this trip. And so you got to find a way to tell a story with these limited parameters in which you've like bestowed upon yourself. And honestly, like, I mean, I'm in no place to be in that, like, but you guys 200 videos in, you know, counting on like just specific drops, but all right, like, you do a trip. You know, I asked the question on the podcast. So I was like, hey, would you change the bike? But, you know, realistically, change the parameters.
Yeah, that would be something I would love. Like, if I'm being honest, I don't think it would hit home with a lot of our viewers. All our diehard viewers would love it, but that's like a pretty small percentage of the people that watch. Yeah. That end up at least clicking on the videos at once. I think it'd be cool. You know, like I've even told the guys, like when we were coming up to the end of the year and we were putting in videos for, you know, the Wednesdays coming up to the end of the year, I'd have not emergency, but a very last minute unplanned surgery. And I'm like, I can't go on a trip. I won't be able to ride for 3 weeks. Yeah. Or a month. And I was telling them, I'm like, you guys should just go on a trip with a GoPro each and film it like the good old days. And I'll just chop it up like I did back then, because I think people would enjoy it like they did back then.
Yeah.
Where it was just two dudes. Again, not that that's not what it is now, but where it's just like two dudes going on a trip and documenting it and not like trying to put it out there. Never ended up happening, but I still got that in my wheelhouse where I'm like, guys, just go. Like, just
I
enjoy
think that
it.
would work.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it'd be great. And again, people would just enjoy it they're not necessarily on our channel for like the fancy editing. They're there for the experiences we get to see. And whether you capture it with a GoPro and an iPhone or a fucking potato, it's still, you know, it's still a good time. Like when you were talking, and even in your video we just watched where you're riding the FXR chop and you put like little words below, like, this is what it's all about. Like, it is. I see that and that fucking hits home, because there is nothing like being on the highway, whether you're suffering in freezing temperatures, you're getting to view one of the most incredible sunsets and you're almost deaf from a crazy day of riding. Like, that shit's rad.
Yeah.
You know, it is. I grew up like vacations with family were like, you know, short little road trips here and there. And I just remember being on like 395 heading to Bishop or something and seeing these dudes on GSs, which I didn't know what they were at the time, but like just some adventure bikes. And like, why are there guys out here on motorcycles? Like, why are they just not in a car? I didn't understand it. And then my first trip with them, even before going with them, I was just ripping canyons. You know, I was in sport bikes and got my first FXR shortly after, but I didn't get it until I did it. And then now it's all I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, if I ever had a couple days and I knew I was going to have them and didn't have shit to do, my go-to is just go hop on the bike and go fucking ride somewhere. Like, there's nothing. I used to ride a lot on weekends with the boys, and, you know, you go get some drinks and you go get food and this and that. I haven't done that in probably 2 years, but on a Sunday morning, I'll wake up at sunrise and go for a ride and like take some photos and do like the equivalent of a photo walk, but on the bike.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
just go take some pics. It's like it's therapeutic, you know?
Yeah, it is.
Just like being on a motorcycle in general.
You know, I go back to what I was saying earlier. You're like the Tiger Woods of this cultivated like motorcycle culture thing. Because you got it early, like, you know, Galen and Lance, like, Jace, you got all the time in the world. They're looking at me like, I got
the same.
and I'm looking at you like, dude, you got all the fucking time in the world.
And it's
you know?
hard to, I acknowledge that and think about it a lot. I guess I come from such a different realm than what I practice.
Yeah.
That when I look at, maybe now it's a little different, but like coming out of school and me choosing to do this, but then some buddies are either doing a trade or
I know where you're
getting
going.
a corporate job, and like they got a 401k, their health insurance, like I don't even want to tell you how much health insurance costs in California, but I guess it's easy to fall into that comparison thing, like, well, when he's fucking 40, he's gonna have this, like, but there's no linear path in what we do.
Yeah.
In something like that, there's more than likely this steady progression. Boom, you retire, blah, blah. But again, it goes back to you can always go get a job. You can, but it's a bit more difficult to try something like this later on in the current space.
Yeah.
When it's like van life is a super good example. How that whole kind of culture started was people just started doing it. And then, maybe we should capture this. Like before Instagram, what it is now. And then now people are doing it to capture it. And it's harder to make a living.
Van life is a perfect example, and it's a perfect analogy to talk about what Instagram was, 10 years ago. I think is when Instagram really took over social media.
Yeah.
Instagram back then, and when we talk about it like this, it feels weird, but the thing is, like, it was so inspiring.
You could see into the life of someone who does something.
It felt genuine.
Yeah.
Now everything feels fabricated, you know?
Yeah.
And when you go to these places, and I know you know this, you go to Key West, you go to get that pier, and then you pull up on it, and there's a line that's a mile long to take a picture to be one of the fucking 1.2 million people that hashtag that fucking photo. Mm-hmm. What social media did was it showed some of us amazing parts of the world, and it made us travel, made us become photographers, made us become a lot of things artistically. And then now, as we pursue these like crafts, like these places that we're going to visit have also become the low hanging fruit for another version of the lifestyle we chose to live.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm a traveler. I'm not a vacationer.
Yeah.
So
Like I'm on the road all the time. And then there's a whole other thing, not to be, you know, flapping my gums about Instagram and shit, but like we'll meet people at events and like, oh, it's so crazy. You guys are on the road like all the time. I'm on the road all the time on Instagram. Like there's a disconnect between like me posting a picture or anyone posting a picture of my bike and some cool shit, and they think you're there like right now.
Yeah.
Well, that was 2 months ago or whatever. I thought I took a break from social media a couple months back, and fuck, I didn't want to come back. Like,
what was it like? What was the feeling?
Just more connected. Like when you get home, like I get home late from work and I'm making dinner, I'm working out or whatever, and then I stop and I'm done. Fun. Like every time you want to reach for your phone, I tried to, you know, stay away from TV and stuff too. So I ended up just getting a good example of how it worked in like this side of things was not that I'm on Instagram during the day, but your mind becomes distracted when you have that behavior. So like after a weekend, instead of like when I would see an email pop up when I'm editing, instead of going straight to it and then getting sidetracked and editing for 2 hours out of a 12-hour day, I was fucking editing for 12 hours. And I got so much shit done, and I felt like I was on some shit, like just very focused. And when I was with my girl or with whoever, you're there. You're not like, oh, like, that's cool. That's it. And not even the Instagram, but just your phone, just whatever. And like being connected and being happy, and you're not getting tricked by this little dopamine rush.
Maybe a difficult thing to talk about, and you and I as friends have never talked about this. Like, how is it in relationships with like your life, which is very not normal for your age?
Honestly, it's never really been I mean, there's been a couple like jealous ones where it's not because of the social media, but because of like the potential attention you could be getting.
Oh, okay. Jealous of the fact that you are getting attention versus the fact that you're getting these experiences. I'm jealous of your experiences.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've taken a very different approach to relationships since maybe 4 years ago. And, you know, it's not really something I put on the internet, you know, but like, don't seek out people that you know are going to behave certain ways, you know, like, anyway, I won't get into that, but I don't know. I mean, maybe back to that part, like there has been times where it's like, oh, you don't have time for me. You don't have time to go on trips. You don't want to go on trips. Like I do. It's not even the fact that I'm traveling very often. It's the fact that I don't have a regular job. I am not like, even though I can sleep in at your place and go into the office at noon, doesn't mean I should or want to all the time. Even though I can take X amount of time off work, if I hustle crazy for a couple weeks just to get 2-3 days ahead, doesn't mean that's healthy for me or whatever. Like, I guess there was some of that where it's like, well, you're traveling all the time. Why can't we? And at the time, maybe I was a little stubborn. Just like, fuck, I'm doing what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah.
Now it's, again, I try to separate this from life quite a bit, at least when it comes to personal relationships and friends. And I don't, you know, I used to get hammered and hang out with friends. Oh, we just went on this trip. Now I'm just like, dude, what are you up to? Like, I don't.
Yeah, you want to be, you want to listen to them. Yeah.
I want to hear what they're up to. I don't want to talk. What we do is talking about what we do, you know? It is a pretty, even though there's a lot of people doing it, it is still a pretty unique, I guess, lifestyle compared to like your average job. Yeah, my goal, again, same thing, being a student, but also like just focusing and trying to treat, I don't want to say treat it like a job, but like I want to mentally clock out too. Whereas during those times, and we were still going through a lot, and we still are, but going through a lot of growing pains where I felt a lot of the weight on my back personally, because if a video doesn't get done, no one else is going to do it. So like, I know you want to hang out, and I know it's midnight, or I know it's just late, or I know I've worked this many days in a row, but like it's got to get done. And now just trying to put a little bit of a buffer between that where like I don't take too much stress home. I don't take too much nonsense home. I really don't try to, like, if something shitty happens, not here, but anywhere in life, like just brush it off, you know?
Well, that, to me, that's what makes you lethal in this space going forward, is that you're getting the work ethic and you have the artistic nature. And those are the two things that don't always come hand in hand.
Yeah.
Work ethic and artistic creativity and drive. And so what you end up having is you get a Chomsky. People don't understand, like, Chomsky is not a collaboration of like products that he bought. Yeah. LUTs and what do they call them? Presets. Like, it's not that. Like, one of the things that inspired me the most about him was when we first started talking and connecting, he told me that he had one lens, which was a wide angle.
Really?
It was like a 16 to 35. That's why if you look at early Chomsky photos, and most of what content made him or became popularized through him, it's all in your face, wide angle. He went out there and made photos, and those were the photos that defined who he is now.
Yeah. And it's recognizable. Like, when 100%. I see some shit on like Black Flies or whatever brand, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's him.
Yeah.
You know? And that's cool. And that also kind of ties into I'm going to create how I want to. And if you like it, you can hire me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you don't, like, this guy's really good at that, you know?
I don't know. Do you feel like you have a style? I don't feel like I have my photograph. Like, in paint, I'll fucking like fight you to I have a flavor. You want the fast life flavor in paint? I got you. In photography, I feel like I'm way too much of a student still to
I think with video, I have a pattern, at least, because I want our brand image to come across the same way. So like, if I'm capturing, it's just like what we're capturing. Like, up until recently, I didn't have a way to safely capture, like, switch frame rates while we're riding. So I'm pretty much always filming in 24, which is fine by me because that's realistic. That has a lot of motion. I get it close up. It's a natural transition. It's good. But on the times where I've had, like, we were on a project last month where we filmed something in one location, and every time we did a shot, we like parked and looked at the footage and this and that. There, I had the opportunity to bring out every tool I had the Sony, had the action camera, had the drone, had this and that, and do 2 shots in different frame rates, the same shot. And with that, you get more of a dynamic look that might not have as much of a pattern as what our YouTube stuff does, because that's just like, go, go, go. We're not pulling over. Like, we've had the conversation with people, oh, how much time does filming add to your trips? It's almost faster, because if I were to go on a trip the way I would want to just solo as an individual, I'm going to stop and pull over. I'm going to get a drink, or I'm going to get food, or I'm going to pull off here and go on a walk. Like, we're just fucking going and then when we get to the place we had, or some landmark, we're going to stop and film, but it's still pretty, like, we're not taking our time by any means. So with that, I feel like I have a pattern, but with photography, maybe there's like a vibe I'm going for, you know, but I think it's all pretty different. You know, I'm always switching film stocks for film. Yeah. I'm always trying out different stuff when it comes to digital. Still very much a student, you know. It's only really been a year or two since I beat the fact that I thought I knew what I was doing.
I love chill music. And I feel like when I watch a lot of motorcycle content, it tends to lean towards what I think the content creator is going to make for the audience. Yeah. So, and I know that you deal with that same concept, because the music does change the vibe of the video. And I think it also could like push away a demographic in a way. Yeah. Do you think that? Like, when you're looking for music choices? I didn't hear a lot of music on that video, that 20 that you wanted to drop.
Yeah, that was a little more, I wanted to lean more into like the feeling of it, the sound design. Whereas if we went from a scene, it's spicy. Where if we went from a scene at a restaurant or a location where we're talking and then it segued into writing, maybe the first 7 seconds was like real loud on music. But then after that, there was it kind of went into the background, whether that was me keyframing audio or choosing a track that did that.
It has that melody.
I experiment with it, and I don't really by any means consider, I'm not like, oh, I got to use this because of the audience. I more so use a certain section genre of music because it fits in line with our brand, like what our videos are. And like when I hear, like there was a song in that one that was almost like a, what do you call it, Muzak, where it's like it sounded like Can't You See, like Waylon Jennings, or there's someone else who did it before, but it sounded like this classic rock song, which is what I grew up listening to because my parents, and what they grew up listening to because they're the same age. And if I'm throwing some like vintage look into the imagery, it's because that's their generation. Yeah. Like if I was filming some stunt shit or whatever, it would be very different. But I guess it's just intentional in, I'm trying to put it out there in a way that resembles them. And our audience, I'm sure he was telling you about the demographic, our YouTube audience is in that age group as well. So, but music is a very time consuming thing. I don't want to be using all the same music all the time. Yeah. So I could spend like, I really try not to work weekends anymore. So if I got a 5-day week and Monday is just fucked and everybody sucks and I'm just doing emails and YouTube comments and helping customers out and fixing orders that got fucking shipped out wrong or whatever. So now I got 4 days. I could also spend a whole day soundtracking. Yeah. So now I got 3 days to like lay down a timeline from 6 cameras or 10 cameras or whatever it was, and then polish it and then color it and then do sound. So it's just a lot. And music is a big part of that, I guess is what I'm saying. It's very time consuming, but I'm not tripping on, oh, is this what the audience, I'm like, does that fit with the visual? Yes. Cool. Good. That's it. And like we've had times where I'll bring them in here and there, unplug the headphones, put it on the speaker, like, hey, what do you guys think of this? Not telling them my like preconceived notion as to why I think maybe it wouldn't work. And if they're like, oh, that's sick, I like it, then I roll with it. Yeah. Like we had a trip, Aaron Baker, just badass motherfucker. Motocross guy, he got paralyzed, neck down. This is a very condensed version. 20 years later, he can like kind of walk. And he went on a trip with us, Velcros his hand to a trike. Just a real inspirational dude. We're on this trip. I saw that video. Yeah. He's written a book. He's got Netflix documentaries, blah, blah. But there was this one song that I put in one of those episodes where I'm just like, it's not like, I resonated with it from the artistic standpoint. Like the lyrics were just spot on. The beat was spot on with that tempo I was trying to cut the editing to. But it was just like it was a bit of a reach for, it was very different. It was something we'd never tried, which is a good thing. And I showed them and they're like, dude, I just got the chills. Like, I like that. So I stuck with it. Now every time I watch that, I love it. So it's nice. I don't know. It was the same thing I was telling you. Like, whether it's quality or just trying new things, like you kind of just have to do it. Maybe you get a couple people that don't like it, but not everyone's going to like everything always, Just try it, put it out there and move on to the next. If you're doing some like lifelong passion project and that matters, it's got to be perfect. All right, I get that. And what's interesting about the music thing is like, I was having a conversation with a buddy recently. When you shoot film like we do, where you're not like editing the fuck out of it or editing it, that's your color profile. Yeah. When you shoot a digital image and you're shooting in RAW, like there's 1,000 different ways you could go with the color. So it's the same thing. Like the video that I gave you a little peek at earlier, that was an experiment for me, and that came out in a way that I'm just like, I get the chills watching it. That intro, because that music is not.
The intro is fucking sick though.
That music is not. Thank you. Is not something I typically use, but I could have very well just put some like upbeat metal or rock or whatever it is, or EDM, I don't know, and like transformed it into something totally different. But it's all just about the vibe you're going for. So you're talking about, oh, this music doesn't represent me in your video, but does it represent what you're watching? Yeah, okay, good. Viewing other people's perception of the world, and if you're using some like Matthew McConaughey soundbite, there's always like road trips or what, whatever he says.
Yeah.
That was like really cool for the first 10 times I saw it. And then after that, I can tell that you can kind of see the intention behind stuff you see on the internet a little bit, I would like to think. And I don't know, I guess that plays a role. Whereas if I see something like that I can tell was like super original and they put some effort into it and there is perfect imperfections, I'm like, damn, that was sick. I love
perfect imperfections. That's it, right? It's the humanization of like your curation of creating art, and art's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be representation of the artist and his perspective or her perspective of the world. Yeah.
It's like getting into gimbals and trying to have every shot be smooth. There is some stuff that it isn't meant to be.
It shouldn't be, yeah.
So like I was watching just when I was saying that prior, I saw this thing recently and it was made by a smaller guy, Page, whatever, up and coming. But he went out and filmed a video for, I don't know if it was Agency Arms, some firearm company I follow. And he's out there fucking hiking in the wilderness, capturing these dudes hunting with sniper rifles and, short barrel rifles, just all this cool shit. And there's some sections where it's just, you can see feet stomping down, it's shaking all about, and it's all messy, but in a really cool way. And then there's just this crispy, smooth close up of a scope. And like having that contrast in your work, where it's like, not everything is the same. I guess I don't exactly know where I was going with that, but like,
no, I understand.
There's a time and place for ways to portray things in a certain way. Back to the, you buy a new lens and you overdo it.
Yeah.
Like it's been so long since I overdid that certain thing that I forgot that I knew that. I forgot that I did that. For a little while, like, we were talking about giving gifts for giving people prints or giving people photos.
Yeah.
For like people I really cared about, for like a little while, I was giving them point and shoots, like a disposable, and just writing something like, hey, there's 36 shots on this. Take a single shot every day for 36 days. And it'll just give you a little bit of one understanding of like what's important to you, because you only have one chance every day.
That's badass, dude.
But two, and most of the time they make a little Ilford HP5 ones, black and white, which for the average person, average, but for your everyday person that doesn't follow photography as an art, black and white's kind of hard to understand. Why? There's no color. What's the point? But you get 36 chances to take something that you think is the most important thing to you in that day, and then you're viewing it in a very subjective way, which is black and white. You're not viewing it for the color or whatever. You just got this one thing that's monochromatic.
Yeah.
It's just
I fucking love that, dude.
Yeah.
That's actually a very that's actually cool. Like make everybody be more intentional with their own time.
That's the goal. Well, you watch Rainy Days. This isn't no Aero Chrome.
Okay.
This is respooled Aero Color.
Okay.
I got this from Canada. It's called Luminaire 100, and it's respooled cinema film that they put into a 35. And I haven't shot it yet, but
don't fuck it up.
I got a couple more rolls. So anyway, that's for you. Just give it a shot. I thought you'd enjoy it.
I'm gonna fuck this up.
Yeah, fuck it up.
I don't want to fuck it up.
It's 100, but my experience, you were looking at those Vision 3 250D.
Yeah.
Shots out there on the table. The exposure latitude is pretty forgiving.
Okay.
I would
put this in the Canon E you want.
Yeah,
right?
I would overexpose before I'd underexpose,
Okay.
but I'm gonna probably shoot some on the strip we're going on this week. But you know, just a little something.
though,
I appreciate you. You know, thanks for having me.
I love that you exist, man. Like, I love that you exist and you're doing all the shit you're doing. You're finding all these things that I'm finding on your own fucking accord, and it makes it easy to, you know, following your groove.
It's a good time to be alive.
Dude, I fucking love it, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We got to go. See you down the road.
I had a kick-ass day with Josh, Galen, and Lance from Two Lane Life. Their hospitality was exceptional, and I'm grateful for the years of friendship we have shared. I couldn't have asked for a better time. Big thanks to Josh for pulling a late one with me on this episode. I definitely had my fair share of whiskey, and need to calm down with that one. If you have been on the fence about joining our Patreon, hear me out. Every Wednesday, I am dropping an episode on our Patreon for our Garage Talk series. Currently out now is an awesome episode on the new Harley Davidson drops, followed by Corey from Main Drive Cycle. Coming this week and next, Down South Campout Craig, followed by Rennie from Easy Rider Cycles. Also, if you're an avid listener of the podcast and want to catch these episodes ad-free, we have a tier for that. I'm trying to create a community on our Patreon page where people can interact and connect with each other beyond the emptiness of social media apps. So if any of that sounds interesting to you and you want to support this podcast further than just what you're doing by listening to it, then please scroll down, click the link to join our Patreon community. I still have a handful of great podcasts coming your way, guys. I really do appreciate you all listening, and we're going to catch you guys on the next one later this week. Peace.